I wanted to unpack a recent Epoch Times article. What will come as no surprise to all those except sycophants of Trudeau and his rhetoric, it turns out that an advisor to Trudeau worked with the Public Safety Minister's communication director to shape coverage of the Freedom Convoy before it ever arrived in Ottawa, according to recently released text messages. It was hoped that this could be done by employing a similar tactic to the one that was used in painting the uprising on January 6, 2020 at the U.S. Capitol. I think there could be an opportunity to get in on the growing narrative of the truckers, said Trudeau advisor Mry-Liz Power in a message to Alexander Cohen, Communications Director to Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino. Power's text messages from around January 24th were entered as evidence at the Public Order Emergency Commission on October 31st. Power was relaying to Cohen a message she had sent to an unidentified members of her team. Hi, I just had a chat with Alex at PS, who had a bit of an interesting idea. As you saw in the pod goals chat, the truckers convoy and some of their more extreme comments, i.e. calling for a January 6 style insurrection, are getting more media coverage, Power wrote. Now, it's unclear what pod goals refers to, but if I was betting on it, I would say it was likely a goal and or target on social media they wanted to hit in terms of reach and shares, thereby helping them solidify the link between January 6 in the US and what was happening in Canada. She went on to say, Alex was surveying whether there'd be interest in his boss, Mendicino, doing some media on this eventually. He was chatting with Mendicino about it right before he went into cabinet retreat. Now, Power and company were hell-bent on reinforcing any and all social media coverage that would paint the convoy in a negative light. My thoughts of the framing here would be similar to what PM Blair said last year when January 6th occurred, wrote Power, in reference to Trudeau and Minister of Emergency Preparedness Bill Blair. Some of these talking points included supporting the right to peaceful protest and saying that some of the calls that organizers of these events are making are concerning, and we're taking them seriously. Would need something to back this up, though. Kinda odd, no, given that the lack of facts and evidence has never ever stopped Trudeau before. Power then remarked they should be careful not to be portrayed as telling police what to do. No. Just telegraph it. Don't dare put anything in writing, folks. This way you can deny it later if needed, right? The Trudeau advisor told Cohen her ideas had been welcomed by her unidentified team members and asked him if Mendicino was on board as well. I had an initial chat with my boss and he's supportive, but wants to wait a day or two. There's a danger that if we come down too hard, they might push out the crazies, Cohen replied. I think that's fair. Apparently, Global and others are working on stories. Maybe we can see how those land, wrote Power back. Global News published a report on January 25th with the headline, Far-Right Groups Hope Trucker Protest Will Be Canada's January 6th. Of course, Global didn't provide anything to back up the headline. Well, why would they? Like an actual interview with one of the organizers clearly calling for this? Ahead of the convoy's arrival in Ottawa, Trudeau referred to the protesters on January 26 as a small, fringe minority of people who hold unacceptable views that don't represent the views of Canadians. Now, is it just me, or if you didn't know that he was referencing the Freedom Convoy, it's almost as if he was talking about himself and his Liberal colleagues. In the timeline of events, a few days after this coordination between Power and Cohen, Mendicino gave an interview to CBC's Power and Politics. Mendicino proceeded to paint the Freedom Convoy in a negative light. He said, some organizers wanted to overthrow the government through violence, and that some expressions fall very much in the category of extremism. This is not a convoy that is about freedom, he said. Of course, this was supposition and wishful thinking on his part. But why ruin a perfectly good lie with facts, folks? So, what was this extreme thing that the Freedom Convoy were looking to do? The unthinkable. Employ actual science and have COVID-19 restrictions, such as vaccine mandates, lifted because they didn't work and didn't make sense. CBC host Neil Kossel suggested to Mendocino in questions that Russia or Russian actors could be instigating the protest in retribution for Canada's support of Ukraine. You mean it wasn't the Donald nil? When Mendocino decided not to address the question and defer to our partners in the public safety, Koskell pressed on. Now, that's odd that when it comes to pushing the narrative, CBC reporters are remarkably courageous and press on. CBC Ombudsman Jack Nagler later criticized the state's broadcaster's Russia insinuations with Mendocino. The fundamental flaw, in my view, was the use of a speculative question when it was not called for, wrote Nagler. These questions, as phrased, did not meet the standard to clearly explain the facts or contribute to the understanding of issues or public interest. Nagler wrote, quoting CBC journalistic standards and practices, and concluded that there was a breach. Someone should tell poor Mr. Nagler the goal of the CBC is not to contribute to the understanding of issues of public interest. It's simply to push a narrative of interest to them and those that financially support them, namely Trudeau and company. Thankfully, the fairy tale woven by the federal government and some media was challenged during the Public Order Emergency Commission. I was concerned by comments made publicly by public figures and in the media that I believed were not premised in fact, said Superintendent Pat Morris, head of the OPP's Provincial Operations Intelligence Bureau on October 19th. Media and facts? As much in common as oil and water, sir. So, when I read accounts that the state of Russia had something to do with it, or this was the result of an American influence, either financially or ideologically, or that Donald Trump was behind it, or it was an un-Canadian, or that the people participating were un-Canadian, and that they were not Canadian views and they were extremists, I found that to be problematic, stated Morris. In conclusion, Morris testified before the commission that he'd been tracking the convoy from its early stages and said there had been no intelligence that was produced that would support a concern for serious violence. Given that, surprising why reporters and government officials didn't run with that story, huh? Anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please post any comments you have in the comment section. You can also follow me on my Rumble and my Locals account. If you're new to this channel and haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you are new as well, check out the previous videos. See you next time.